Tonight in the conversation, the rise and fall of Donald J. Trump. Stay with me. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to the conversation. My name is Adrian Christian, and thank you so much for watching. As we are heading to the polls in November, I decided to embark on a series of conversations that we can have with one another. Now, I know that most of us are actually certain about where we stand. Many of us know how we're going to vote in this coming November at the ballot box. But for many of us still, there are so many people out there who are undecided or who are on the fence or who are struggling with their choices. Sometimes I'm hearing that, they wish it weren't such a tight race or that it was very clear on who they wanted to vote for. And so for those of you, I am here to speak on what it is that is holding us back from coming forward with our vote and deciding to vote. There are some people out there also who want to sit it out, who aren't happy with either candidate. The candidates, of course, we're talking about are Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump. So in our very first broadcast here tonight, I am devoting this episode to the rise and fall of Donald J. Trump, to explain a few things about how we got here, because it is, to me, unbelievable that we are even here, and I know to many of you as well. Let's talk about Donald J. Trump and the appeal. And what was the appeal? Well, if you look back into time, you have to first remember how he came up as a socialite in New York City and his appeal as a businessman, a successful real estate tycoon who really built an image. It was, a brand that he himself created. Donald Trump is really more of an idea, actually, and still is. It isn't really the person. People don't really gravitate towards the things that he's said and done so much as to what he represents. Those who voted for him in 2016 share that commonality. They say today that they're not voting for the person, but they're voting for the policies or what he represents. And so people voted for a person who had an image of a businessman. And that whole mystique of being well off, wealthy, spoke to Americans in a way that made us feel that we too, if we follow him, that we too can be successful. This ideal really was sparked in the Reagan era, but being the underdog served him, and being the outsider, the anti-establishment, that was the whole appeal. And so people who were sick and tired of government voted for him. There may be other reasons, and if there are, please comment and let me know. And I am here to listen. I am here to learn as much as I am here to inform, because I certainly don't have all the answers. But these are my observations. This is what I have seen and what I have noticed. What really changed the whole game for him was COVID 2019 and the pandemic of 2020, the lockdown, the shutdown of America, and the closing of brick and mortar businesses, small businesses, many who went out of business, and the unemployment rate that shot up, as well as businesses that failed, and the economy was suffering, and people were dying, 10 million people. And so we lost a lot of lives. I personally lost 15 people that I know personally to COVID-19 that died. And so we haven't really looked back at what that administration was like. Because every time we turned on the news, at the time, it was a circus. And constant reporting of more deaths, more people who were in hospitals, people who were on respirators, hospitals that had no beds available. And so these were the things that really, really had impact on people directly here in this country. If you were older, it affected you. If you were young, maybe not so much. But it was hard to ignore the need for wearing masks, the change of lifestyle, and the rush for a vaccine. These were things that I think ultimately hurt him in the 2020 election, because he himself had gotten COVID, and he was someone who was denying it. He was an early denier of COVID-19. So I really feel that he seriously hurt his image, but his image was the most important, pertinent thing to him. And so how did he run when he ran against Joe Biden? Well, he ran on some of the same rhetoric, insults. There wasn't so much of a campaign as much as there was a strategy for winning and to make sure that he would have the votes. And it was a close race in certain places like Georgia and Arizona. And so, but when the votes were counted and all was said and done, he clearly lost. He lost the election of 2020. And what did that mean? Well, that meant that he wasn't going to take that lying down, because he's never accepted a loss in his life. And I ask you right now, do you really, after all that's been said and done and how difficult it was to bring these things to trial, do you really believe that we as an American society are willing to vote in a man who's a convicted felon for the White House? Do we believe that we're going to have a president, that we want to elect a president who is a criminal, who is convicted of a crime, several crimes? We've never had it before. We've never had that choice before. And I'm not ready to vote for someone who is convicted of a crime. Never have seen it before. Growing up as a child, reading my history book, learning about the presidents of the United States, not one, not a single. Now, there has been activity, there has been accusations, there had been pardons of Nixon, there has been all of that, but a convicted felon to actually be voted, when I go to the ballot box, I can't make that vote. I can't, as an American, I cannot simply stand there and just circle in Donald J. Trump. I can't do it. If it were Mike Pence running, it would have been easier to think of. Not that I would have voted for Mike Pence. I stand on certain beliefs and understandings about the rights of humanity, human rights, the rights of the LGBTQ community, rights of women, civil rights. Not to say that he is against all of that. And we haven't even begun about abortion. And I really don't necessarily have a judgment on people who really found an appeal for Mr. Trump. But I live in America, and I'm an American. And the ideals that I believed and what I wanted that to look like, a leader, wasn't him. But there's no way that we can just turn our backs on ourselves. And I say ourselves because it isn't about supporting Donald Trump. It isn't about supporting Kamala Harris. It's about taking our country and keeping our democracy and the rights of all Americans. So that's what's on the ballot box. There is so much we can break down on policy, on information that we think, that Kamala Harris is not doing what she should be doing, what people don't know about her. More about that in the next edition. But for now, I just want to make a focus on how he was charismatic and how it was fed to us. And what didn't help also was the media coverage. He had nonstop media coverage because he was so different and he was so colorful and he was so appealing to people who were sick of the status quo. So I appeal to you to share this with your friends, tell them about it, tell them how you feel, and we'll do more in the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate that you're here. And if you like what you saw, if you're on YouTube, hit your subscribe button and hit a like, if you will, on Facebook, and invite your friends to join our group and ask questions. Ask questions of each other. How did we get here? Why are we here? Why is this even a choice? So these are things that I really would like to share more about. And I will say we have a concern by Christopher Diacosta, who is on the Facebook group page for the conversation, and he has concerns about Project 2025, and we're going to run that in upcoming episodes, as well as having guests who will speak with us as well. These first few are going to be simply to put out the questions, put out the thoughts, open up the conversation so that we can prepare ourselves. And when the time comes, to just get out there and vote. I'm Adrian Christian for the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.